What is the single most important trait leaders should have? People love asking this question, and most people answer confidence. In fact, it's one of the first things that comes to people's minds. Few traits are celebrated as much as confidence, particularly in the West. This might be less obvious in Asian societies, where traits like expertise, self-knowledge, and humility are valued more. But the tendency to glorify higher levels of self-confidence and self-belief, even when they're unrealistic or irrational, is increasingly universal. So, for instance, much of the popular advice focused on helping people to become leaders is based on the premise that if only people believe in themselves, they can get others to believe in them too. Adopt a can-do attitude. Be a hero in your own mind. Lean in, change your mindset, think positive, and anything will be possible. The sky is the limit. Oh, and don't worry too much about what people think of you. If you think you're great, you probably are. There are three big problems with this type of advice. The first is that there is only a trivial relationship between confidence, which is how good people think they are at something, and competence, which is how good they actually are at that thing. Scientific research correlating measures of self-perceived and actual ability scores across a wide range of talent domains, from maths to music, IQ, creativity, even sense of humor, driving skills, and romantic skills, suggests that there is merely a 9% overlap between people's confidence and their competence, which means that a lot of the times we're going to have to pick between one or the other, confidence or competence. Now, I'm not sure about you, but personally, I think I would rather have a doctor, dentist, driver, teacher, and financial advisor who is competent rather than confident. The second problem is that this advice is hard to follow. You can't just wake up one day and decide to be a more confident version of yourself, boost your systematic levels of self-belief, or completely re-engineer your self-concept. You just can't do this, at least not without engaging in a significant degree or amount of reality distortion. Now, granted, many substances, both legal and illegal, may help you achieve this, but it is best to stay away from them. Again, if we look at the actual science of confidence rather than the myths propagated by the self-help industry, we can see that most of the variability between people's confidence levels, and the reason why it's so obvious that some people are more confident than others, has to do more with their personality or temperament than with their ability or any deliberate or conscious efforts to boost their own confidence. So when we tell people that in order to become a leader, all they have to do is to be more confident, and people actually believe this, they will most likely feel very frustrated when they fail to accomplish that goal. It's a bit like asking people to be someone else. When people believe that this should be a very simple task and that their own career success is entirely dependent on changing their self-views and adopting a different mindset, they will end up feeling very bad when they fail to achieve this allegedly simple effort. They could have been anything they wanted, we could say, if only they had managed to believe in themselves. Yet they were so inept they couldn't even do that. Or perhaps the issue is they didn't want it badly enough. The more we perpetuate this myth, the myth that people's career success is entirely in their own hands, as if obvious differences in social class, privilege, temperament, and talent didn't constrain or augment their potential and opportunities, the more guilt we make people feel when they fail to achieve their dreams. It's a bit like telling them that if they don't succeed, they only have themselves to blame. It's just their fault. The third problem is that this advice, unfortunately, does sometimes work. That is, there are many times when people do manage to advance their careers, climb up the ladder because of their inflated egos. And of course, this happens to everyone else's detriment. When we select or pick leaders on the basis of their confidence rather than competence, we end up with people in charge who are overconfident, unaware of their limitations, unjustifiably pleased with themselves, and prone to taking reckless risks, making avoidable mistakes, blaming others for their own mistakes, and taking credit for other people's accomplishments. Now, if you think this profile is quite common in politicians, well, you are right, and that's because we tend to select them on confidence and charisma rather than competence and integrity, or humility. And unfortunately, the business world is not much different. After all, political skills are not just found in politicians, and they're a common career lubricant in any group, system, or organization. And since confidence and overconfidence are generally higher and much more celebrated in men than in women, men over-index in leadership roles, particularly when they are not competent. To be sure, there is no inherent problem having leaders who are confident, and charismatic, so long as they are also competent and ethical. But our selection methods, from televised debates to job interviews, focus so much on style that we end up neglecting and overlooking substance. Unfortunately, in any area of life, all style and no substance will generally get you further than no style and all substance. When we pick leaders on the basis of their superlative confidence or inflated egos, we should not be surprised that individuals with narcissistic and psychopathic tendencies who interview very well are overrepresented in the leadership ranks, or that few traits are as emblematic of leadership incompetence as arrogance, which is a surplus of confidence. Delusions of grandeur and megalomania pay off for a very simple reason. It's a lot easier to deceive others if you have already managed to deceive yourself. Confidence, then, is a double-edged sword, distorting leaders' self-awareness and inflating their self-concept and fantasized talents, while at the same time fooling other people into believing this delusion. The main advantage high self-confidence confers is to help people hide their incompetence. This is quite common in leaders because they generally have too much of it. Confidence rather than competence. And it's not really their fault, so we shouldn't blame them for just being chosen. We should blame ourselves for choosing or selecting people for leadership for the very traits that will probably contribute to their downfall, and not selecting for what actually matters, which is talent. Unfortunately, in any area of life, it is a lot easier to measure confidence than competence or expertise. And it takes real competence to not just spot, but also stop incompetence. To be clear, I'm not arguing here that the world would be a better place if leaders were pathologically insecure, clinically phobic, or fearful, or highly neurotic. But we are pretty much at the other opposite extreme of the spectrum right now. In a logical world, we would select leaders not just on the basis of their competence, but also when their confidence levels are in sync with their actual talents, so that they are capable of self-awareness, understanding their limitations, and able to accept their mistakes with humility in order to adjust their future behaviors and get better. Contrary to what you might think or deduce if you take a look at the vast collection of self-help books devoted to boosting people's confidence, humanity is not insecure. In fact, research across multiple paradigms in psychology, from behavioral economics to neuroscience, indicates that most people have too much rather than too little confidence. And social psychologists have shown for decades that there is a pervasive and universal bias called self-enhancement, whereby our preference for thinking highly of ourselves usually surpasses and eclipses our interest in understanding reality. So, yes, there is a case for lowering leaders' confidence. Because we select them on confidence, they have too much of it, and because that actually makes them less competent, they would benefit from a reality check, which can only come from feedback that enables them to adjust their self-perceived talents downwards, so that they are aligned with their actual talents. We should therefore spend less time flattering and more time flattening leaders' egos. It would make them better, and everyone else would be better off too. An even better option, of course, would be to just select individuals for leadership roles when they are competent rather than confident, not least because overconfident leaders are often immune to the critical feedback they need to get better, to the point that no facts, evidence, logical or rational arguments may be enough to lower their confidence and make them more self-aware. This could be done by focusing more on substance and less on style, by picking people for leadership roles with good technical expertise, intelligence, curiosity, humility, empathy, and integrity, even when they're not great at self-promotion, and especially when they don't have a distorted or inflated sense of their own capabilities.